This is Victoria Vesna from California, the state that is burning, and we are inside quarantined with the pandemic and the smoke. So we're luckily having a lot of time to do an amazing program. And I have been collaborating with Harvestworks, Carol Parkinson, Paul Geluso, and other sound artists for many years now. I was on Governor's Island a couple of times, and it became a place just really dear to my heart. So when I heard that we could actually have a dip into the Governor's Island and see what artists like Katherine are doing, I just jumped at it, and I thought it would be so fantastic to take people on a journey. So even though our garden is here in California, we're so eager to get out. And thank you for taking us there, Carol. It's a pleasure always to work with you. And I'm excited to see Katherine Bennett's work. I may leave a little earlier because we have other sessions going on. But luckily, all of this is recorded and we can take a look at it afterwards. So, welcome to both of you, and welcome especially to Katherine for doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, super. So, Carol, if you want to go ahead and start the video, hopefully I'll be able to see the video here in Zoom at the same time. So I'm Katherine Bennett. Hello. It is so fantastic to be here with all of you today. I really want to thank Victoria Vesna and the team out at UCLA and ArtSci for this awesome invitation and opportunity to share my work with you guys. I'm so excited to be here. And especially to Carol Parkinson's and the Harvestworks crew doing all the technical behind the scenes. This has been a little crazy to set up and streaming and all these different links, but everyone's been working really hard, and I just really want to thank you for all your hard work. I'm super excited to share my work here, which is the masquerades of the soft machines. because it fits in really nicely with the Ars Electronica theme here with Kepler's gardens, and specifically with Telluric vibrations. And so to tell you just a little bit of an overview about my work, this series, The Masquerades of the Soft Machines, is a series that I've been working on here for some time. I have several pieces in the series that I'm going to share with you here today.
I'm resizing the video, sorry.
Okay.
Quality matters.
It does, it does. So this Masquerades of the Soft Machines is it's a series I've been working on for a while. And it's a series all about how this technology is alluring us, right? This, we have all these, glowing phones and screens and buttons and things that are so responsive, and they do things, and we can get things really quickly and easily as a result of this technology. We get these dopamine hikes from all these presses and all these likes, and who's following us. But to me, it's a masquerade, right? There's this beautiful kind of exterior view. There's this glittering, there's this thing that allures us. But behind that, there's this false pretense, right? Because this technology has an effect upon us, and it especially has an effect here on our culture. And it's really, really changing us. And so I want to talk to you about that today. So I'm a new media artist. I've been making work in this field for about 20 years. My mediums are electronics, physical computing, code, and fibers. I work in the physical space, so I make interactive objects and installations. This piece that perhaps you're looking at right now is one of my first light installations called Sleeping Thoughts. And this is made to be like a three-dimensional field of stars that you're looking at, that you could like walk through. And so my work is about, creating these experiences with this technology that are just sort of like right on the cusp of real experiences. So I like to create these phenomena that are just at the edge of what we're creating. And so my research is based on how technology is shaping us as humans, as a culture, and how, like, what are the emerging futures of our digital experiences? I'm not quite sure how off this how off the voice is from the stream here, but we have situations like this where we're deeply, tied to these machines. These machines are actually shaping us, and this has been proven. Physically proven. There's this term neuroplasticity, where the brain actually adapts to its environment. You can think about how we've evolved over time here to be who we are here today. And if you think about it, these neurons that we're not using so much anymore, these neurons that aren't being used are actually being commandeered by other neurons. They say the neurons that fire together get wired together. And we can get this sort of sense as we, look at our like telephones. We have, we used to remember lots of telephone numbers. I used to remember tons, and now it's maybe like 2 or 4 as we outsource our minds to the machine. And so I think about this quite a bit as, I remember less and less about these situations. In fact, it's been proven that the more you use your camera to take a picture, the less you actually remember from that event, right? And so we use this technology to cover the limits and the differences of our body. This technology fills in. And right now, this technology is not only sort of like filling in, but it's creating that gap to be larger and larger. And I notice this difference, in my own behaviors and in my own patterns, like literally as I'm being rewired. This first piece in the series of the soft machines is called memory capsules. And so memory capsules are these devices that you can put in memories to. You entrust these small soft machines to to hold on to your memory. And so what happens here, you go up to this little soft machine and you breathe on it, right? You breathe on it and it triggers a memory. Just like our breath sustains us, you know, our memories sustain us and our identity. But there's the play here of the algorithm, right? So over time, the algorithm is there to manipulate your memories. You know, you can blow on this and there's an animated kind of like light display. But after some time, the algorithm starts to take over. Maybe it puts one memory with another memory. It supplants memories together that weren't originally together. Perhaps it rearranges memories in particular events. Perhaps it overwrites memories with other memories, as well as being able to like black out certain memories and erasing them from being, right? I mean, you can think about this in how we use these other software systems. You know, think about Netflix. You go into Netflix, Netflix has hundreds and hundreds of movies in it, but we can't see everything that's in Netflix's library. We can only see what Netflix shows to us. So there's some politics there in the algorithm of what is shown to us. And these algorithms are the things that are sort of shaping us and shaping our experiences. And Nietzsche had this experience himself, right? So Nietzsche is a philosopher, he was a writer, and he had these effects where he actually started to lose his sight. And a particular technology of that era was Malin Hansen's precursor to the typewriter, which was the writing ball. And if you look on this, if you look at this, you can see this sort of device, and you know, just the power that would go into it, looking at this like precursor to this typewriter. And his writing changed as a result of that. Even his colleagues would talk about this. They said his prose became tighter and concise, almost as if the machine power transferred directly to his words. And Nietzsche even agreed with this. He said, our writing equipment takes part in the forming of our thoughts. And this got me thinking more and more about how these tools impact us, and they start to shape our behavior. And I came across this quote from Nicholas Carr, you know, talking about how language is directly connected to our primary vehicle of conscious thought. Like, to me, that's really crazy. Thinking about how these tools that we use transform our consciousness, affecting how we think, how we listen, how we express ourselves, as well as like how we communicate. And often with very lasting effects. And so, you know, I started thinking about this more, and I started to notice how technology was shaping my own life, right? And so I'm sure maybe you're familiar with Google Voice. It's a software service, a telephony software service. You can sign up for it, and Google Voice has all these awesome little bells and whistles, including one where it will email you a transcript of your voicemails. It'll email or text you these transcripts. I was like, great, sign me up. This is fantastic. And so I would get these transcripts, and if you take a look at these transcripts, oh, they're awful. There's all these like words missing. This stuff like doesn't make sense. It's like whatever. And you know what happened? I stopped calling people back. I stopped answering my phone. I just stopped calling people back. I would use this transcript and like, you know, just do what I need, pass along the information, you know, like what have you. And I was like, this is crazy. This is messed up. Look at this service that has been created, right? So it's this service to help to broker communication between two parties. And actually it's forming this wedge there, because I'm not calling people back. I'm not having that like one-to-one conversation with these people anymore, right? So I'm able to like dial down the human contact instead of, you know, forming a stronger connection with them. And here is this algorithm that's there for this transcription that's behind all of this. There are a series of these algorithms that's then, you know, forming this wedge where I stopped calling people back. So I was like, this is nuts. I got to make a piece about this. And so I made, this is another machine in the machines, the masquerades of the soft machines, transmissions from the system. And what this is a box with all these electronics that I put together. There's a screen in there. And this pulls down, you know, and obviously thinking about the work of Sherry Turkle as well, right? Thinking about how technology is there to sort of like, you know, it forms a structure of these ways that we interact with people, you know, so you can't forget Sherry Turkle's work. But transmissions from the system, it pulls down those voicemails from my server, pulls down the transcript as well as the voicemail file itself. And the audio file of the caller is what powers the light bulb. And so depending on if the caller is talking really loud, the light bulb is going to be really bright. If the caller is really soft, it's going to be dim. And the light illuminates, you know, for the whole duration of the voicemail, as it's the caller's voice that's powering that. And that's sort of synced with the message that plays. But there's no sound present here. There's no sound present whatsoever, right? Because we're dealing with these artifacts from technology, but the real thing is completely absent, right? So there's this gap there. There's that lack of presence. And so this thing runs continuously in the space. And it's great when I show it because people are like, oh my God, this is your voicemail? Like, this is nuts. How can you let your voicemail be like visible to everybody? And I'm like, take a look, right? And it's kind of humorous. It's like people go up and they're trying to ascertain, you know, what's going on and like what's happening with it. I've also been thinking a lot about these networks that coordinate this information, thinking about these invisible networks that are around us in space at a given time, and thinking about how these networks work. You know, we think about how we send a letter in space, you know, and that letter kind of goes out and it arrives in the exact same way, you know, at every point that letter is still in its integrity. But that doesn't happen with our digital information, right? Our digital information is split up into all these different bits and pieces. It's sent along the network at different times, and then it's reassembled on the other side. In addition to that, the forms that those bits may take can change. You can go from sound to radio wave to fiber optics to digital signal, right? So that message keeps transforming. And I find it fascinating that these networks are these things that we can't see are the things that facilitate it. I mean, we're not aware of it until it breaks, right? And also thinking about how light is another form of communication, right? And you know, thinking about like boats, thinking about cars, bikes, airplanes, how we use this light as a way to like navigate and as a way to communicate. And specifically thinking about the bioluminescent life in the oceans. You know, bioluminescent life, they use light to hunt, escape predators, to communicate, you know, attract mates, to do a whole bunch of things. It's another form of a communication tool. And they have three ingredients generally to help them create this light. They have luciferins, which is a light emitting pigment. And they also have luciferase, which is the enzyme that when oxygen meets these two ingredients, they react and then create this unstable compound of light. And suddenly this thing that was invisible, all of these entities that are out there existing in the world suddenly become visible. And sailors have even talked about this. They call this the Milky Seas. And this is even evident, you know, there from satellite. So I just find this stuff incredibly fascinating at making, you know, what is invisible suddenly visible. And so I'm working on this piece right now called Luciferins. And luciferins is a piece I've been working on for some time now. It is these soft fiber structures. It's a physical installation that people can walk through. It's a soft fiber structure that people can walk through. And upon disturbance of these fibers light up with different colors and, transmogrify in these different forms. And if you're there long enough, there's a portal that opens up to show the network traffic that's coursing around the space at a given time, with 7-channel sound of field recordings from my various travels here. So I've been doing a lot of work creating the fiber structures. I've gone through many different prototypes of them. Coding the graphics as well. So starting out kind of simple and then working on these different graphical animations to get this sort of rippling feeling of color that goes through. So, there's some examples of some of the fiber prototypes. I started Nuno felting with wool hankies and silk fibers, as there on the left, and knitting with wool roving there on the right. Then I started to move into felting with wool roving, and then pulling at different aspects of the felting process, pulling this sort of tight to get this beautiful surface design on the different fibers. So you can see part of the process on the left and there on the right. This is a simulation using the graphical code that I've crafted on what I'd like the final piece there to look like. And this is a demonstration of one of the earlier prototypes on some of the older fiber structures, showing, illustrating how the graphical animations will illuminate on the structures upon agitation. So I've got the code I'm working in processing. I'm projection mapping that out in space. I'm using Max MSP, doing the tracking in there, and then if you're there long enough, a portal will open up, and that portal will sort of get larger and larger and then show you the network traffic that's coursing through the space. And that's when the space really enlivens with sound, because then you get an instance of this window of what's going on in another time and space, thinking about that network traffic. Where is it going to? And so the sound is these field recordings from the travels that I've had across the world, with some wonderful delays and echoes that Melody Lovelace and the team at Harvestworks has helped me with. And I've been really lucky to have this residency on Governor's Island through Harvestworks. Here's a shot of my studio. You can see where I'm sewing and machine knitting, as well as like working on the final aspects of the graphics. And you can see a little bit here about my process. I thought I'd let you in on that. So I'm working on the code, I'm refining the code and the graphics, working on the portals. I'm also doing machine knitting, which is really quite wonderful. I'm using this machine from like the late 1970s. It's a mechanical machine. I'm knitting with 400 needles at one given time, just kind of going back and forth there. And I'm able to generate fabric from there. So this is like a circular fabric that then I'm going through and putting stitches in, a certain pattern of stitches, to be able to create that surface design on the outside. And so then I pull those strings tight, I felt that, and then I take what comes out of that felting process and I can see how the design is kind of like locked in there. And so I take that fabric, once I have it, I just think it's beautiful. I'm so engaged with it. And then I cut that up into different shapes and I go ahead and sew those things back together to create these forms that I am going to be projection mapping on. So I encourage you, that's the current point that I'm at. I'm going to be installing here at Governor's Island in a few weeks. I'm super excited. I hope that you follow me on social media. to see this piece come to fruition. It's been a lot of work and something that has haunted me for years. So I'm super, super excited about it. And I hope you'll join me on the social media world to see how it comes out in the end. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here today and sharing this space and time with me. I know things are busy with everyone, but I'm just so glad and excited for you guys to be here with me today. So thank you.
That was really wonderful. Thank you so much. You have a comment online saying you're making a rich intersection among fiber arts, field recordings, and networks, from Mike Bullock.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
A few people saying, this is so exciting. I can't wait to see it in person. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Carol, is it possible you could move the video over to the other side so they can see my social media handles there on the slide? Okay. Okay. Oh, that's great.
Everything's delayed.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be like the very end of the video. I can drop a few things here I can actually drop them here in the chat. I know, it's kind of crazy, like working with this and trying to manage this. I know, it really helps to have that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for letting us into your world and your process. Much appreciated. I know it's a little tough when we stream from 2 different platforms and there's this delay.
Yeah, it's hard to know like exactly where the delay is, but hopefully it's all there.
Hopefully me typing ahead like what you're going to see was helpful.
Yeah, it was super, super helpful. Yeah.
Now for the next artist, actually. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I teach at the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. I teach programming, physical computing, interactive installation, and a whole bunch of things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're basically, you have 5 minutes for your next artist to come on.
Okay. Are there any questions like from the YouTube watchers or people out there?
A lot of thank you and can't wait to see it on social media. No more questions.
Okay. All right. That's cool. They can find me on the social media. Track me down there.
This video will be recorded so you can point people to it. Cool.
Cool.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Victoria and Carol. Many, many, many thanks. All right. Hopefully everything's smooth sailing from here on out.
I hope.
Thanks.
Hi, Jacob. Nice to meet you. I'm Victoria.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, great. Thank you for inviting me to this. This is really awesome.
Of course, our pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really excited about it, and there's a lot of people here.
Yay.
There's like 557
There you go.
watching, or no, that's subscribers. Wait, oh, there's 33 watching. Okay. So
it also goes into other platforms too, so it's hard to calculate. You just have to kind of go with it and not worry about the.
yeah.
One thing, Carol, I need to point you to because I may have to move and do parallel processing. And also Jacob. So what happens is on Zoom as you're speaking, your work is going, Carol is sending it directly to YouTube, and there's 30-second delay.
Okay, yes.
So one of the things, unless you're really organized with what you're showing,
Mhm.
Carol, what was helpful to Catherine, I was typing in, you can see in the chat here in Zoom,
I saw that, right.
I was typing in what you're going to see next, so
Okay.
so you may want to do that, or I can ask Chella to help if you need help. But
Okay, cool.
we look at YouTube and we say, okay, this is what you're saying. And
So
actually,
okay.
you don't want to look at the YouTube. You just want to
Okay.
pay attention to the notes because it
Gotcha.
starts getting confusing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, well,
Cool.
actually, I think we've been going in the other direction, right? We've been advising people only to monitor the live stream so that they can synchronize with the live stream and sort of ignore the Zoom.
Catherine was getting a little lost, so I don't know, you can try.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
No, see, if you're monitoring the live stream, but your
Mhm.
Zoom is actually behind.
Yeah, behind 31 seconds.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
don't want to do that. You want to actually not look at it and just pay
Sure.
attention to what the person is telling you. Or if
Okay.
you're super organized, like, okay, 30 seconds later, this is coming. So
Yeah. No.
I noticed from when we were doing our network performance, it was a little bit of like a head twist because we had three different.
Sure, it is.
So
Definitely, that's a huge delay, but yeah. So yeah, it's definitely best to take the notes.
Yes. So Carol, can you do that? And do you want me to bring Chella? Chella's here, actually. She can help.
Yes, yes. I can do
So
it.
maybe Chella can do it so you can pay attention to the stream.
I see. Okay. Yes.
Okay, good. All right. We're going to do this. That's a beautiful image, whatever it is.
Okay, so I'll introduce Jakob. We're really happy to have Jakob as one of our studio residents on Governor's Island. Originally trained as a painter, Jakob was drawn to digital software as an opportunity to explore the transformative impact of digital media on painting and the painterly perspective. Inspired by the meditative quality of screen-based televisual space, Jakob draws from multiple media, including painting, drawing, digital photography, collage, and smartphone apps, to explore contemporary modes of image making and viewing. His work has been presented internationally, including Amsterdam, Los Angeles, Berlin, Atlanta, Vienna, and New York. He was awarded the Harvestworks New Works Residency in 2010, and the following year, in 2011, he was awarded a United States Artist Residency. So Jakob, if you'd like to get ready to talk about your work, I can start the video.
Sure.
Enchi, Visions of a New World, is an art and strategy game that will be played out both online and in the real world. The aim of Enchi is to enable the creation of both imaginary spaces and real-world events that will give players and observers alike the unique opportunity to explore our impact on the world through art, technology, anthropology, politics, and more. Enchi is staged on an imaginary planet called Sard, where players are represented through chosen nation avatars. These nation or territory avatars will interact online through the exchange of an energy-based currency, as well as in the real world through an exchange of their fictitious cultural forms. The inaugural version of Enchi will facilitate interplay between 21 nation-holding players. Once a player selects their nation avatar, he or she becomes a nation holder and will be given access to an online Enchi account that will feature a package of country information, including its demography, its various maps, national flag, as well as real-time news feeds that report on current events around the planet. Each nation holder will be given a national energy bank and currency with which to exchange with other players, and also to distribute amongst their own national institutions as they encounter and navigate current events reported in their news feeds. Phase 2. ENCHI as Art Series. The second phase of ENCHI Interplay will facilitate real-world art production by each nation, as well as the competitive exchange of fictitious cultural forms, where SART becomes the stage for the survival of the most creative nation. Nation holders who may not be creative producers themselves will have access to an ENCHI network consisting of some of the most innovative creative professionals in a variety of disciplines to help actualize their artistic visions through collaboration and commission.
So this is my project, ENCHI. It's actually something that I started as a child in 5th grade. I used to draw continents. I was really into coastlines. For a young artist, coastlines are those are really beautiful, intricate lines to practice your stroke. And so I would draw these continents, and eventually my classmates began to ask for nations, and so yeah, we began to trade currencies and all of this. It was really a creative collective experience. So I brought it back as an adult to really get into looking at using technology as a critical thinking device, and for kind of what they call foresight and future studies, or futurology. So it's basically having a science fictive kind of a generator, or alternative futures generator. So when you go onto the app, you would you would have your profile is basically like a social media type thing, and then from there you work towards nationhood, and so you would have your different values of of citizenship, and trade currencies, and it's very much a world simulator, but it's also giving us a chance to look at what they call foresight thinking and curriculum. So not sure, let me see. So when you go onto the app, on your dashboard, you'll have these different properties and inputs that would go into basically that would crunch into a projection to see the alternative futures that there could possibly be with those different values. But then also there's this idea of coming from technology. It's almost kind of an anti-technology to come back into the real world, into analog making and connecting and thinking about things. So it's in this most recent iteration, it's being used, or I'm using it as a kind of a tool for education and for foresight thinking and future studies, and what they call integrative study, which basically cuts across all of the different disciplines and puts them all together to come up with very real world solutions. So you're looking at history in terms of trends and projecting those into the future. So, and that's where the dashboards come in, where the dashboards are basically designed by educators. So the whole app is really geared towards educators, whether it be arts educators or teachers, to really be able to engage the students. You know, most of us have the question in school at some point, you know, when are we going to use this? And integrative education and future studies is one way to really be able to see all of that. So when you go into your dashboard, you'll be able to have a constitution. You can have different, you know, an educator can on the back end be able to design a dashboard specifically for the lesson he or she is teaching. So there could be, you know, a number of different modules that could be used to teach certain lessons. So the game will be played basically in episodes and narrative phases. So it's very long, drawn out terms of play. It's not an immediate experience like a video game, so to speak. So it's very, very text based. There's a journal space in there where you go in and actually you're writing about ethics, and you're writing about your ideas about the particular episode and what we're studying at the time. On the dashboard also, you'll see a module where you can play the game on behalf of different causes or on behalf of different populations, to raise certain issues so that the players are able to give inputs into what they would like everyone to be thinking about, or that, you know, things that are guiding their gameplay. And also on the dashboard, you would be able to invite people. And this was pre-COVID that I developed these parts of it were very much geared towards meeting in real space and real meetups. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, you can determine your flag. You can customize your profiles. It's basically everything that you can do with a Facebook or you know, any of your popular social medias. So it's, you know, you're posting and all of that kind of stuff. So the entirety of the experience for what I'm doing right now is I'm in part of an investor incubator. So it's causing me to really look at not really developing the project entirely, and kind of leaving space for, like I said, for those educators to come in and on the back end with an advisory council be able to really design the game. So it's basically, you know, in business, there's the idea of a pragmatist in pain, which is the customer or the prospective customer that's really needing a solution to something. So unlike the art world, or different, I mean, kind of different from the art world, it's not so much a monologue or an actor, you know, or an author giving something to the audience, or giving what they want. It's kind of a back and forth. So on there, yeah, we talked about the Constitution and different being able to play for featured causes and all of that. There's also a chat space where actual users can actually be connected. And like I said, you know, this emphasis on kind of a groupthink kind of atmosphere, to really think about, you know, those causes and think about the direction of the world and future, and foresight thinking. So if you see the activity space, what you're looking at is the wall, and that is, you know, where you basically post up like you do in Facebook, where you can delete comments, you can edit comments, like comments, and interact with other users. So it's very much looking at the experience of the interaction ritual, and users being able to get in touch with each other, and like I said, kind of come get off of use the app as a point of departure and come into the real world to meet, to ritualize, to perform, and think, and, you know, interact in live space. So that's pretty much what the chats are about. There's also a video chat section on there, but the video chat is disabled for now, just because of moderation. You know, I have to figure out how to moderate better, and it will be, that part will be mostly online only. And so Jim Dater, the futurologist, he's in Hawaii. I think he's still based in Hawaii, has 4 ideas for the future. And it's basically continuation, which is, you know, when you ask most people about the future, they really kind of envision that is going to be what it is right now. But there's also the ideas of collapse, and the ideas of discipline, that, you know, we're going to turn it around somehow, and then the idea of just total transformation, like anti-aging or CRISPR or something. So now to move on to my own work, or my other work. These are pieces that were created from an algorithm. I was doing a residency in Berlin in 2010, and my hard drive crashed and created a bunch of visual noise that I actually threw away in my trash. But before I emptied the trash, like a couple of days later, I pulled it out of the trash and started to manipulate it using these algorithms and these set parameters. And it has produced 250,000 images to date. Not all of them are coherent or quote unquote good, but I think it's been a pretty wild meditation on just variation. It's almost like a genetic flow. I'm into the idea of morphogenesis and the birth of the birth of form, that Manuel Delenda talks about a lot. And so it's something I've really enjoyed. And you know, coming from being a painter, it is a very kind of different process to get used to, because it's basically just me pushing a button. You know, I set up the parameters and the algorithm, and see what comes out. So the most of what I'm doing is looking at what was produced afterwards. So. And so a lot of it is really just about how far I can take it. This is like I said, been a meditation on variation and noise and lines, color. I mean, the palette that you see was not the palette that I was working on at the time of my hard drive crash. So it really was a computer taking me in a completely different direction, and it's been almost 11 years now. And so one thing I started doing was, and this was kind of my attempt to get back to analog object making. I began to make light boxes from the images. So I print the images on Duratrans transparency, and then build a frame, LED lights inside, and yeah, have a light box. And but I also put them on TV, and I project them. But yeah, like I said, it was kind of me trying to really get back into realness, real object making, coming from digitality for 21 years. And it was, when I started doing digital, it was actually supposed to be just kind of a foray, a kind of me just kind of experimenting, but I am continually interested in it and interested in light and this kind of the new mode of viewing, that I would like to see painters embrace a little bit more. When I first started, I thought that everyone would be doing digital work. It just seemed kind of logical to me, but here we are 20 years later, and really not that many people are doing it, unless it's like maybe animation, and film, of course, and photography. But as far as digital art and new media, it's still kind of a lonely space, and an uncharted space to some degree. There's Bitforms in New York, and the Museum of Moving Image, a digital art museum in LA. There's it's really sparse, but a Lightbox that just opened up in New York, which I have not been able to visit because of COVID. But yeah, so I mean, it's out there, and people are working in light and new media, but it's still a lot of space to be explored with it. So yeah, that is about it for me. You can find that work, the last work that I just showed, you can find it at autonomousprism.art. And you can find Enchi on the iTunes store. It will be on Android soon. It was on Android before, but I kind of let it slip. So I'm going to bring that back and republish it fairly soon. And yeah, you can write me at jakob.dwight, Jakob Dwight, jakob.dwight at gmail.com. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you Carol and the UCLA crew and Ars Electronica for having me and inviting me. This is really exciting. I was really looking forward to this because I haven't really had a chance to take part in a digital studio tour yet, and this is this is really exciting. So thank you.
Thanks, Jakob. Let's see. Are there questions from the live stream? What I noticed about the Enchi, and what I think what we really picked up on that project was the how deep it is, and that you know, you're really starting from a clean slate. You know, you have so many parameters in there that are able to be defined, so that the experience is really building a world from pretty much zero, which the blank canvas idea, which makes it very, very creative. And I think in terms of an educational tool, I think there's a lot of potential there. I think it's really great, and the visuals. And I was happy to hear about the the inspiration and the origin of the visuals, because it really is a dynamic source, especially when you said there were 3,000. How many photographs how
Oh
many
yeah,
images has it?
it was 250,000 at the last count. And then I curated down to about 9,000. And so that is the autonomous PRISM collection that you see. Is those? It's about 7,000 to 9,000, coming from the whole 250,000. But and like I said, those are not all coherent, or and a lot of them are repeats, or very similar.
It would be just tremendously fascinating to see them being created. Are they created in real time and like visualized on the screen?
Yes, they are. Actually, let me. If we have a little bit more time, I can show the. Can you see? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and when you said you just press a button.
Yeah. So it's basically it's Ortega y Gasset's dehumanization of art comes to mind. I feel kind of guilty in a way as an artist. It's especially as a painter, we get so into this psychological flow space with the material and with working with the canvas and the paints and this and that. But it's like, yeah, I spend most of my time looking through what was created afterwards.
I see.
So it's more like tarot cards or divination, and just looking at relationships and things and all of that. It's been really interesting, but at the same time, it's yeah, I feel guilty as an artist, because it's taken away what I really kind of appreciated about the art experience and the art making experience. So, and like I said, I mean, the light box, making the light boxes kind of alleviated that, as far as getting me back into actually making things, and going through the process. But back to what you're saying about Inchi, I've gotten really excited about it, being in the education space. You have things like Second Life and these virtual reality experiences, but they're very kind of entertainment geared, and of course, I mean, there's critical thinking within that. But I think what is a little bit more needed now is kind of platforms for us to really be able to digest and walk through relationships, news, future, all that, rather than just this immediacy. So yeah, I'm really excited about it being in the education space, and of course, it'll still be an art experience, with the kind of exhibition aspect to it, and the art making and ritual making and artifact making aspect of it as well.
So I just wanted to say that, before COVID, Harvestworks had planned an exhibition to have the house on Governor's Island to hold the artworks of these artists that are presenting today, or some of the artists. And so if you can envision an actual exhibition space with both NCHI and some of the dynamic light boxes that hold some of these images from the from the Berlin series. You know, we hope to have that out on Governor's Island next summer.
Yeah, definitely. And this actual what you're looking at now is that's for Governor's Island. So,
awesome, they're beautiful.
So, but yeah, is there any questions or anything?
I'm looking at the chat, and you know, people think it's a great educational tool. I think there's not a lot of questions. I think mostly what I've picked up from the presentation. So I think we can move on. We hope that Maya is in the waiting room, our next artist from the Governor's Island series. So again, you know, you can follow up Jakob's work online as soon as we're done with the series of presentations today. You'll be able to see the live stream. Oh, okay. Okay, so let me check the Zoom and let's see what Maya's doing. Thanks, Jakob.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Maya's here. She's our next artist from the island, and I'd like to introduce her. Muyassar Kurdi is a New York City-based interdisciplinary artist. Her work encompasses sound art, extended vocal technique, performance art, movement, analog photography, and film. She's toured extensively in the US and throughout Europe, and she's currently interweaving homemade electronic instruments into her vocal and dance performances, stirring a plethora of emotions from her audience through vicious noise, ritualistic chants, and meditative movements. It sounds awesome. Let's see if we can get Maya. Yes. It looks like you're muted.
Okay.
There you
Can
go.
you see me now?
Yes.
And hear
yes.
me? Oh,
Yes.
wonderful.
Zoom is pretty much.
Well, thank
so
you
I've
so
just-
much for the introduction. My name is Muyassar Kurdi. I am grateful to be part of the event today. And without further ado, I guess I can talk about it a little bit afterwards, but we can play the video straight away.
Yes. Okay, let me do
Cool.
that.
It's my piece called Brainworks.
Let's see. I think this is it. Oh, sorry, wait a minute. Let me find the right video.
Hey. Ha.
what was that? What was coming out of my mouth just then?
That was fun.
That was so fun. Well, making rituals.
Hi. Oh, there's so many things to say. Well, this piece is called Brainworks. It was originally supposed to be a little bit different, but I feel that I changed it around post-COVID. Brainworks was inspired by ritual, by memory, visual rhythm. I wanted to connect the body and the mind, and I do that a lot with machines in the body. But this time I was using paint. So I've been painting large scale paintings at Governor's Island during my time there, and collaborating with two friends, Joanna Maitre and Miriam Parker, on an interdisciplinary piece. As an interdisciplinary artist, I am interested in connecting the modalities and unifying the disciplines. Do you have any questions for me?
I thought the drawings were particularly interesting.
Yeah.
How do the drawings function as a visual score for you? Is it time-based, or is it the overall composition structure, or what's the relationship?
Yeah. It's I've given them to musicians and I've given them to dancers, and I've told them, like, interpret it how you think, but also in terms of rhythm, volume, and cadence, the gesture. I think that it's pretty much open. But definitely been thinking a lot about landscape, ecology, and a lot of these images are, I think landscape has been on my mind. So that's where I'm coming from, sound-wise as well.
My next question would be whether the scores is it just one image, or do you offer the player 3 images, or how are they sequenced, or is one score one drawing?
There's several. Right now I'm working at on a commission at Roulette Intermedium in New York, and I'm collaborating with my friend Luke Stewart, and he's an upright bass player, and I actually have the whole entire floor just scattered with graphic scores, and while he's moving and dragging his bass from one side of the stage to another, he's interpreting the scores in his body and also in his bow, the bow extension of his body, really. So I have a lot of scores usually. It's sort of an obsessive thing.
There is a question from the audience.
Oh, great.
From Charlotte, and she asked, I think you mentioned making electronic instruments at the beginning of your talk. Is that right? Can you speak more about them?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't make instruments. I collaborate with my friend who makes instruments. I work with a lot of homemade electronics, usually. I'm really interested in movement also. So I've been really looking to combine those worlds of the body and the machine. So I've been using devices that my friend Michael Una out of Chicago has built. one of them which is connected to my body and responds to movement and light. It's a microtonal device. It is sort of like a body theremin, you know. Yeah, I use these devices with my body, and I try to connect the disciplines. I'm not doing that for my Harvestworks residency. Actually, I feel like a lot of my project changed because I just didn't feel like I wanted to do what I originally thought I wanted to do. So it just got, once I saw my room at the Governor's Island, I said, oh, I just want to paint in this room. I just want to paint and move. And that's what I'm doing. It's maybe a very, very stripped down version of something I originally had planned. But I'm really interested in the body and the urgency and taking up space with the body. Memory, particularly memory, how the body and the mind connect. Brainworks is sort of an homage to something really personal. Well, I've had a head injury in the past, and so I had to relearn how to use my body. And so I'm interested in the neurological aspect of that. And so when the body comes into play, I'm interested in what comes first, the thought or the motion, and what comes first, the sound or the body, you know? So Brainworks was my way of addressing the experience of being in my body for a second time. I'm so interested in many things as an interdisciplinary artist. So I like to find ways to connect the different disciplines, and just to be more in my body more and more is I mean, after COVID, I mean, geez, I'm trying.
Great.
I'm trying. Yeah.
I think that answers all questions, Maya, and I'm happy that we're able to provide you with the space where you can feel as you can spread out a bit and experiment and try things with no restrictions. It's a nice opportunity for us, I think.
Yeah, I really am grateful for the opportunity. So thank you so much for having me, and to everyone on the team, thank you for having me a part of the festival. My name is Muyassar Kurdi, and in Arabic, it actually means to make life easy. So hopefully I live up to it. And with that, I will see everybody. Ciao.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Let me introduce Dafna and tell you a little bit about her and her sister, who are working both on this project. Dafna Naphtali is a sound artist, vocalist, electronic musician, and guitarist. A performer and composer of experimental, contemporary, classical, and improvised music since the mid-90s, she creates custom Max MSP programming for sound processing of voice and other instruments and music for robots. The Audio Chandelier is a multi-channel project included in her artist studio on Governor's Island. She has also created the Walkie Talkie Dreams, which is an audio augmented reality sound walk in New York and in Germany. A little bit about her sister. Metalsmith and jewelry designer Ayala, correct me if I'm wrong.
Ayala.
Naphtali draws inspiration from ancient alphanumeric systems, contemporary architecture, and her own personal cultural history. She's intrigued with the balance and proportion and feels that each of her pieces must find its access on the body. She creates work with elegance and minimal bold forms, precious metals, and alternative materials. So I think we should give it over to Dafna so she can talk about the project, the audio chandelier.
Hi, I'm Dafna. I'm in Brooklyn. I feel like everybody needs to say where they are right now. I will ask Carol to play a short video that explains a little bit about my audio chandelier multi-channel projects. My sister may pop in. She's in her studio working today making jewelry. She's a master metalsmith. While I was waiting to come on, I decided to hang some of the pieces in my office, and it's kind of working. So there's a little bit of that. It's a little difficult to do that and show you everything, but we'll see. I've was so much looking forward to finally being able to work with my sister. Governor's Island made that opportunity possible after many years of playing around with the idea. It's unfortunate that we couldn't do it this year, but I'm grateful that we have an opportunity to get a heads up and go try a few things out now so that we'll be better prepared for next year. With that, Carol, it would be great if you could play the video. This will give you an idea about these projects that I've been doing in multi-channel sound since about 2010. Have it? Okay. If not, I can play it, but you have it. Oh, you know what? Maybe I turned off the YouTube, so. I don't hear the audio. Have it? Carol, would you like me to share the screen and to play it myself? It's from someplace in the middle of the video. And I didn't hear the there it is. Okay. It's playing. No. I will later. Okay, so why don't I play it? Let me just get, yeah, I see something that you're doing, but it's not the movie. Okay, may I share my screen? I'll just play it. Oh, sorry, I need to share it again with the computer. Yeah, but I didn't share the computer audio. Okay. Okay, so here's a short video that I put together that sort of gives an overview of my pieces. But Carol, I don't see the video now in the YouTube. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So Ayala's joined us.
Yes.
So I wanted to say thank you for watching that. I wanted to give a sort of a overview of what kinds of things I've been doing with this. But it was my dream for a long time, for several years, about how could I somehow involve my sister and her beautiful designs and the jewelry. And she's in her jewelry studio right now. So just, maybe Ayala, maybe you could say one or two, a couple of things about whatever you'd like about what it's been like for you. I just want to preface it by saying we shared a room from when Ayala was born until I was 16, 17 years old, and she started making jewelry at that time, and we've collaborated on many things as sisters, but we've never done an artistic collaboration before, and it's been really interesting and fun.
It looks like you have a couple of objects in your studio
Yeah, I
there,
have
Dafna.
some things that we are kind of in the works, some lots of little projects that are happening under the table, and just and they're not all that different than some of the pieces that I make. And I see if I can show a tray of jewelry projects of things that I'm working on. And lots of things end up laying around for a long time until all of a sudden they come together. So sometimes it may seem like a mess, but that's how I work. And I think I could take this off for a minute. I share my studio with a few other artists in Brooklyn. So we are masked when working. But I think that, as things evolve, a lot of things are changing, and we're thinking about using some 3D printed parts once I kind of prototype what we need. And, we have a lot more time now, which is kind of great in a certain way. But I'm looking forward to getting it going. And the sounds of, we may end up taking some audio from my studio, which I know Dafna has done that already a couple times, where she's come by while I was working and recorded things. And
That was fun, because Ayala led the way. I went through, said what's interesting, and then she said this is an interesting sound, and she'd start banging on something.
It's an actual horrible sound. One of them that anyone who comes near it is just like, what is that? No.
It's an ultrasound cleaner.
Yeah, there's an ultrasonic machine that, it attacks your phone if you go near it. It kind of just.
I have the pieces that Ayala was working on hanging in my office. While I was waiting, and I wanted to say that, like, this one, is it okay if I say what you made it out of?
What is it? Yeah.
A Khalifa.
The Khalifa bottles. And then we have lots of sort of Middle Eastern vessels that I'm kind of taking apart and doing some things with them.
I bought that in a market.
Yeah, these are the Khalifa bottles in process. Actually, I recently made some of those into a planter as well. So, these are some plants that have come out of recycled parts and things, planters. So I'm really into repurposing things, and that goes with my jewelry, and I'm trying to incorporate that into the project. We definitely have to purchase some stuff, but whatever we can find and rummage, I always feel like that's an extra fun part for me.
Well, and it's also been great to have Ayala working with me. I'm a programmer and a singer and a sound person, but I don't necessarily have all the mechanical skills. So when we were trying to hang these speakers, what we did when we were out in Governor's Island is try to figure out how to hang them inside these other pieces that Ayala has put together, so she just can improvise something on the spot, to make a cradle to hang it, and she's incredible with her hands. So it's been an interesting way. Actually, the things that I have hanging I'm hanging these from right now, ironically, are parts of the camping gear my parents bought in the 1960s that we used when we were kids. Because I still had these pieces of string lying around that are perfect for rigging up something at the last minute. So I'm finding out in working with Ayala that a lot of our background with our parents has really come into play in both of our works, our individual artistic work, that I didn't realize until I started working with her. We grew up going to MoMA every week, and I know we were both exposed to Calder and kinetic sculpture, and I know that it's impacted on her work, but it also impacted on how I see my own work, even when it's a visual influence. Sometimes it comes out in my sound. Let me say something about the sounds in Audio Chandelier, that it is, on the surface, sounds like an acoustic ecology project, because I mentioned crickets and outdoor sounds, and it is a lifelong practice of listening. Ayala, you probably also do this, just of sitting, when we would camp, sitting in the woods, or if I'm in an urban environment, and I teach my students to listen. And I wanted to create an environment. Something that's really inspiring to me is many, many, many copies of the same thing, each slightly displaced. So this is not a virtual reality project. This has always been about many speakers in a room, to create an environment that you are in right now. The room you're in is what you should be listening to. I am not trying to recreate something else. So that often has been between 16 and 32 speakers. As you've seen, in this case, Ayala and I will probably make 8 or 9 speakers, and she's deciding how it's going to look visually. We'll work together on what the sound will be like. And I will also have some other support speakers to get some lower end sound, but it will stay in that same shimmering kind of sound. I can also go to very electronic sounds, and there's an interactive component this time because I reworked a lot of my code so that people who are experiencing this can have some kind of impact, and that things will change over time. It's not a fixed media piece, it'll be constantly changing. Ayala, I would like to show a couple of websites that might be interesting, and just share my screen for another couple of minutes. Carol, I have about 4 minutes, right?
4 minutes.
Okay. So first, let me just show you this. This is the Max Patch working. This is what it sounds like in my office right now. So for me, that's just... So I can make a lot of changes, and when I have a lot of copies of this, it can become something quite immersive. I like metal and wood and real world sounds. There are no synthetic sounds in this project. I might do things to them to the point of them being synthetic. Okay, so then the last thing before we leave is I want to share desktop 2. You'll see Ayala for a second. Hi. Here. So I have these websites, and Carol, if there's a way that you can put audiochandelier.com in the chat, or if that can happen on the other end. This is about all my sound works. This beautiful image is from a spinner that was downstairs in Ayala's building that she knew, when we went to him and thought about paying to have them spin specific shapes, but we moved away. There's audio here, many different things. Here is Audio Chandelier Polyelios. This is the name of the new piece, and some more information. Here's ayalajewelry.com, and there's incredible images here, and I want to just encourage you. I'm not trying to sell jewelry. These designs are gorgeous, and there's a reason why I wanted to work with her. So ayalajewelry.com. I think, wait, I should go to the front page of that. Yes, and this is my design. No, I'm just kidding. This is my daughter. And this is Walkie Talkie Dreams. Carol alluded to the fact that I do sound walks, and so I've done sound walks, audio augmented reality sound walks in New York, in Williamsburg at the waterfront. It's still there. Hamburg, Germany, which was related. Walkie-talkie dream angles in Washington Square Park, all based on a Google map, and technology by my partner in this project, Richard Rodkin. And so if you're interested in that, go to Walkie-Talkie Dreams. The reason I mention it is because I started sourcing the sounds with Ayala at lunch with the shells, and it occurred to me that I could make a small sound walk that's related to this exhibit and have it be part of what we're doing. So that's another idea that just came up. There's also here, this came out yesterday. Oh, it's off to the side. It's a podcast in a radio station in Columbia about my walkie-talkie dream angle project. So yes, Carol, if I can pass these along in the chat, if you want, I'll do it myself when I get off, but that's all I needed to do is just pass these URLs along, say it's a work in progress, and I'm very excited about next year. And we'll come out to Governor's Island again, but we were mostly looking at how are we going to hang things at this point.
Right.
Yana, do you have anything else?
I just want to say, to come out to the island, Dafna was one of the artists that was scheduled to do the exhibition this summer, and the exhibition has been postponed till next summer. So in May and June, we will see new work by these artists that you're listening to today. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you, Ayala.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dafna.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So I would like to introduce Charlotte Mundy. Charlotte is one of our artists on Governor's Island, and she's working on an installation. It's called Light as a Feather. She's a vocalist and composer that's been called a daredevil with an unbreakable spine, which is interesting, by SF Classical Voice. Her music has been performed in the Resonant Bodies Festival, Chance and Circumstance, and Parapasis. Is that how you say it?
It's periapsis.
Periapsis, music and dance series. Recent performances include a set of music for voice and electronics presented by the New York Festival of Song, described as an oasis of radiant beauty. This is by the New York Times. So we're really happy to hear about Light as a Feather.
Thank you so much, Carol. I think the best thing to do is just play the video. I kind of explain it a lot in the special studio visit video I made.
Okay, let's see.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Mundy, and I want to thank the Telluric Vibrations Festival and Harvestworks for inviting me to speak about the work I'm currently developing, Light as a Feather. This is an 8-channel surround sound piece of music that, in addition to sound, uses wind, light, smell, and visual elements as integral parts of the piece. Maybe it's some kind of ghost play or ghost opera, I'm not sure what to call it. I conceived of this piece especially for the Harvestworks house on Governor's Island. This was the home of the Lenape people who called it Nut Island, until it was stolen by the Dutch West India Trading Company, who claimed to have purchased the island from the Lenape for 2 axe heads, a string of beads, and a handful of nails. They used the island as a place to dock trading ships. Later, the British took the island over and turned it into a military base, and for centuries it was inhabited by members of the U.S. military. Now Governor's Island is a place where New Yorkers can go every summer to get a dose of fresh air and green space and to wander around and see what all the artists in residence on the island are creating. Last summer, I was a tour guide for Natasha Deal's and Sam Scranton's installation, I Love Myself Fully and Unconditionally, so I knew that anything I created out here would mostly be experienced by families and groups of friends and people on dates. Some musicians and other sort of arts workers came to see the installation, but it was mostly experienced by sort of lay people. And so I wanted to try and make something that regular people would be enticed by, and also maybe a little freaked out or inspired by. So that was part of the reason for coming up with the pink tissue paper wall, because I wanted an element that was just obviously pleasurable and playful and pretty innocuous, and that people would see through the windows from the outside and be intrigued by and want to come in. Eventually, the pink tissue paper will take over most of the room, and one wall will be crawling with vines instead of tissue paper. This piece is also in conversation with the medieval abbess Hildegard of Bingen. She lived in the 12th century and ran a convent, and she wrote down such dazzling spiritual visions that the Pope recommended her work at a conference of bishops in her area of Germany. And this was at a time when very few women were even literate. She also wrote beautiful chant for her convent and notated the chants at a time when very few people were notating music at all. She also wrote some of the first books on medical treatments, and I think all of her work came from her passion to care as fully as possible for the women in her convent, her sisters. She was convinced that God was present in the bodies and voices of the sisters, and this was a radical thought for that period in the Christian world, where women were really considered the cause of all men's suffering. There are stories of women who were incurably possessed, quote unquote. Groups of highly trained monks could not free them from the evil demons, but they would go and stay at Hildegard's convent, and after a few weeks or a few months, they would be cured. So I think that maybe she kind of knew how to heal trauma, how to make people feel safe. And for Hildegard, knowing exactly what powers every single plant in her region possessed was an important part of staying healthy and therefore staying close to God. So I've used fragments of text from her collection of visions called Shivias in Light as a Feather. And the installation's overall vibe and sonic landscape are sort of abstractly inspired by Shivias as well. I wrote a concert work in 2018 that also is inspired by Hildegard, but this work uses musical quotes from her chant, specifically her chant from the piece Ordo Virtutum, Order of Virtues. My piece is called Queen of Virtues, and I'll play an excerpt of a recording that I made with flutist Laura Cox performing the work. This piece involves a visual or movement element with a transparent white veil covering us at the beginning of the piece and slowly being pulled off by me over the course of the piece. Another concert piece that I wrote, Bluff, from 2015, also features flutist Laura Cox and the Rest of Talk Ensemble, of which I am a founding member. And that piece used rustling tissue paper and signage as an important visual element. In 2015, I also wrote the music and helped to devise the shadow play portion of What Grows on Trees with choreographer Julia Bengtson. The vocals are by myself and Lucine Yegiazarian, bass by Doug Balliet, and the dancers are Abby Marcheseau and Pablo Francisco Ruvalcaba. And the last piece in this digression about my past work is something I made with the digital artist Laura Lewison in the spring of 2020. It's a virtual environment called Flower Drool. This is a demo video of someone navigating the space. Okay, back to the present. Here's me in the studio, and I cleaned it up for you. Light as a Feather is split up into 3 sections. The first section will use wind and multicolored twinkling light coming from the light fixture on the left. Eventually, the tissue paper wall that you see on the right side of the wall will cover the left side also, partially obscuring the magic window, just like it covers the real window. But because the paper is sort of translucent, people will still be able to see the glow from the magic window. Here's a rough excerpt of the sound for the first section.
Light's better, stiff as gold. Light as a feather, stiff as gold. Light as a feather.
skull and creeps down your spine. The second musical section of the piece will also use a more extreme flashing light. I constructed the window frame with 1 by 2 inch pieces of wood held together by long wood screws. The lights are Adafruit NeoPixel side light strips, and I'm controlling them with an Adafruit Metro board, which is programmed using Arduino. I'm also using a Max patch to trigger the different lighting effects. Melody Loveless helped me to program this part. I've been working out possibly using aluminum foil as a reflector to make the lights appear brighter. Six wings. Okay, and the third movement. I will use smell as a sort of extrasensory element. I've been working on building these squirt robots using servo motors attached to spray bottles. They're filled with a mixture of water and witch hazel, equal parts water, witch hazel, and then drops of essential oils, rose and sage, which is a scent combination that Hildegard recommended as a way to ease anxiety. The squirts are not quite vigorous enough yet, but we're almost there. Thank you for watching my video. I guess I'll hand it over to Carol now. Thank you so much to Telluric Vibrations again for organizing this amazing festival, and to Harvestworks for giving me the space and encouragement to create this piece. And thank you to Melody Loveless, who's helping me with programming, and Kevin Ramsey, who helped me to formulate and record some early musical ideas for the piece.
Thank you, Charlotte. It was awesome.
Thank you. I just was sitting here thinking about like how grateful I am to Harvestworks for giving me this space to sort of test out some electronic ideas that are new to me. And also it's just so beautiful, like how many different things can fall under the umbrella of digital arts. It's cool to just see the variety of artists that are talking today.
Well, I think we're really interested in your multidisciplinary approach and the use of light plus physical materials, sculpture, and scent and sound. That whole environment. Can you tell us a little bit about? But what's also interesting is your relationship with history, and it's this particular person that you're interested in. What is your relationship with the person? Hildegard, is it?
Hildegard of Bingen, yeah, a 12th century abbess. And I guess for me, the connection to history is partly, it's valuable to me because we are all like given a certain kind of training. Like I have sort of a classical voice background, and there's a tendency to just assume that people always thought about music one way, like the way that we are taught about it in school. And so looking back at someone like Hildegard makes me realize that like for her, music was tied to creating community with her nuns. I didn't mention this in the video, but she also created a secret language, lingua ignota, that her nuns would speak, and that was connected to her music. And her music was also intimately tied to her ecstatic visions. And she mentioned scent and plants in her visions. So I think for me, it's always helpful to have models of people or activities that I can sort of look at and respond to, imitate a little, but mostly like respond to. So for me, it's cool that we have like such a huge history that we can look back at and see like how have other people thought about the things we're interested in. And yeah, it appeals to me to think interdisciplinarily, because I feel like music is very synesthetic, and it can't be, although I come at my creative work from sort of a compositional place, I think sound is always tied to movement and physical objects and light and color, and it's all connected.
That's interesting when you say synesthesia. It also came up in the chat in reference to Maya's work.
Yeah.
And I think actually we could probably look at more artists in this group that have a synesthetic relationship with image and sound. You know, I think Harvestworks is a particularly interesting place to explore that, and also to be able to work with that phenomena with technology, right? It's like amazing. Okay. So I think we're coming on 5:30. Hopefully now, sorry for those bloopers. But anyone who is interested in seeing the video can look at it. Unfortunately, the mistakes will be on the recorded video also, but you know.
Maybe I can put it on my YouTube channel.
And also what we do sometimes is re-edit broadcasts and then put them on our recorded channel. So what we might do then would be to ask you for that video and just replace it, you know, in post-production, right? So anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your, I don't think there are any questions in the chat. Let me just take a quick look.
No, I don't see any. Okay, well, I'll let, I think
Joseph is
Joe's
next.
right?
Joseph and Alexandra.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye, if I could. So our next artist is Joseph Morris and his collaborator, Alexandra Goldberg. We've worked with Joseph quite a bit over the years. He was an artist in residence, and then we sponsored work by him that was funded by the New York State Council on the Arts, and he might talk about it in his video, but they're really amazing works. He's a transdisciplinary artist based in Brooklyn. He's an expert craftsman and coder who believes in the possibilities enabled through the integration of technology and the arts. He's a recipient of the 2017 New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowship in Electronic and Digital Media, as well as the 2017 New York State Council on the Arts Electronic Media grantee. He holds an MFA in Art and Technology Studies from the School of Art Institute of Chicago and a BFA in Sculpture from SUNY Purchase. He's currently a professor and rapid prototyping technician at Pratt Institute and professor at SUNY Westchester. His collaborator, Alexandra Goldberg's practice, is a multidisciplinary research practice studying how experiences in the material world can be a portal to our understanding of the immaterial world, which is fascinating. While working, she balances intuition with analytical thinking to uncover and learn from visual, tactile, experiential, and theoretical metaphors. Her philosophy is to learn to balance dualities such as intuition and analysis, work and play, and structure and flow, so that two elements may be thought to exist in tension, can be perceived and utilized as a harmonious relationship, which sounds awesome. I guess, would you like to explain further, Joseph and Alexandra? Is she there?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Joseph Morris. Like Carol said, I'm an artist who works with technology. I have a background in sculpture, and I like to make things that are interactive and responsive. And the pieces that you're going to see are pieces that deal with some scientific phenomena, as well as invisible spaces and how we experience those things. And Alex, do you want to?
Hi, I'm Alex. As Carol mentioned a bit about my practice, I'm really interested in connecting the our spatial world and the external experiences we have outside of ourselves with what's happening internally in our body. And I am doing a bit of that through studying invisibility, and that's kind of where you'll see us meeting in terms of invisible forces, either internally in us that we can't see or externally in the world.
Do you want me? Should I play the video?
Yeah, we can talk more about our practice after the video's done.
Oh, shit. Remember, there's that 31-second. Let's see. Lag time.
Last year, I was part of a residency at Pratt Institute called the Steam Plant Residency, where I was given the opportunity to work with some scientists that teach there, as well as a designer / architect. And we put together this data abstraction that uses, that starts from muon particles and is projected onto this light grid. It's about 200 LED bulbs, and I made a custom particle detector out of Geiger tubes and electronics and Arduino. And so what I was thinking about a lot with making this piece was tiny imperceptible spaces and things that are happening all around us. So these muon particles, they are created by cosmic radiation as it enters our atmosphere. And they're high energy particles, and they pass through our bodies, they pass through the earth. They're very, very tiny, and they go through solid material as if there's nothing there. And so kind of thinking about those small interior spaces and then relating that back to larger spaces like architecture, relational spaces, and big, vast, sort of imperceptible spaces like where these are coming from outside of our galaxy. And so that idea of using particles was actually coming from this piece. This uses, these are two cacti, neon cacti, that will flash on and off. There's a Geiger tube inside that box, and every time it gets a particle decay, it will turn the light on and off. The Geiger tubes are there as well. I learned that if you could stack them, because of the way the muon particles work and how high energy they come into our atmosphere, they are instantly, near instantly detected between two Geiger tubes at the same time. And that's how you know it's a muon. And so what that does is the data that is collected from the sensor is, and this is all in real time, extrapolated onto this sort of field that represents the bulbs. And it's almost like a pond, so that whenever there is a muon particle detected on that sensor, it will send it into this processing sketch, and it's almost like throwing a rock into a lake or into water, and you're seeing the ripple. And so this is how the computer is actually seeing it. It's not a 3D image. That's just for us to kind of have a better representation. It takes that the data from the 3D image, and then it creates this 2D grid. And all the levels of gray on the screen are mapped to a brightness level on every individual LED bulb. By the way, the steam plant residency, they have an open call every spring, so just put that on your radar. This is a piece from, I think, 2016. It was the first time I worked with Harvestworks. It's part of the New Works residency, and it is called the Solar Particle Wind Chime. It is not solar powered, but actually pulls data from this NASA ACE satellite. The data I'm pulling is energetic solar wind data. And so as data is streamed in, it is sort of going into max MSP patch and driving solenoids, which are hitting these custom hand-blown glass bells with piano hammers. And this is an image of the max MSP patch. So in the upper left, there's a pendulum or virtual pendulum that is using physics for max, and every time particles are detected, it will swing back and forth and hit the blocks that surround the pendulum. Every time it hits a block, it sends a ping to the solenoids. So for the past few years, I've been kind of working on how to get glass to resonate. Almost like a big wine glass. And so, yeah, these are spinning glass bells, which I'm controlling with, I think, a Raspberry Pi. I can't remember, it's a little while ago. And then yeah, all the sound here is coming from the actual hand-blown glass bells. And so this is related to the work that I'm doing on Governor's Island that I was supposed to present pre-COVID this summer, trying to figure out how to continue to make this glass resonate. And so these pieces, I find that if you just kind of tap the glass really fast, you can kind of find its resonant frequency and it will start singing. It's much lighter than those large glass bells, but there it is. And I'm going to connect that to some, we'll talk about this more later, but I have some other particle detectors from a lab in Brazil. This is collaborative work with a performance artist. Her name is Andrea Fram. And these are big breathing spaces with light. So the whole space will expand and contract rhythmically. Just some other collaborative work I wanted to share with everyone. And they're sort of choreographed singing and movement. And now here's Alex.
I have always been interested in how we can make the invisible visible. How can we use the creative process to study how we experience invisible forces? Our sense of sight is our primary way of collecting information. And in our fast-paced culture, if we can't see something, we often ignore it. This means we're ignoring a major part of our experience. Subtleties get overlooked, and we ultimately create a culture that is less dimensional. The first piece I did where I really started to study invisibility was a piece called Invisible Place. In this piece, I made very intricate bobbin lace works out of monofilament thread. But from afar, the room that it was in really looked like it was empty. And then as you started to get closer, you would notice bits and pieces of the work. So here's a shot from a bit closer where you start to see a buildup of thread at the bottom, and it indicates that there may be something above it. At nighttime, the lighting changed, and the pieces were activated in a way where you could really see a shadow drawing behind the work, and that would indicate the intricacy of the work that you could then find within the space. The process of creating these works really helped me understand what I was getting after. Because if you look and see how it's being made, there's a really intricate map of the lace, like the shadow that happened in the end. But while you're making it, it almost feels like you're doing all this activity, but nothing's actually being created. And so that really got me thinking, what happens in our culture with how visibility is really the thing that we determine means that something's real or true. If we don't have something to prove it, then what place does it hold within our world? The second work that I did along these lines was called Inhabitable Lace. And this was similar in the sense that it was also bobbin lace, but the scale went up in terms of the piece and materiality. So this piece was made out of industrial fishing line and can hold up to 400 pounds. It had a similar idea how from afar you really couldn't see it so much, but then when you got up close, you started to see its intricacy. And then when someone activated it, it was almost as if they were floating. And so at this point, the invisible forces really started to take on a character. And in this installation, it was about support. So through creating these works, I began to understand that the work existed to heighten the viewer's understanding of the subtleties that our egos find it easier to ignore. To dive deeper into this, I started utilizing my creative practice to gain a deeper understanding of my internal self. I knew I wanted to keep my body in the work, and I wanted to focus on movement. So I started to research how movement could give me information that I couldn't gain from my vision or my sense of sight. Just try to see what can the movement and what can my body tell me. So these are excerpts from a book that I made called Notes on Yoga. This one says, "Today while wrapping my peace fingers around my big toes, I was reminded how powerful words can be when you use them well and wisely. I wore blue leggings with pink clouds on them today in yoga. Every time I looked in the mirror to adjust myself, I saw myself floating in pink clouds, and it reminded me how my practice connects my body to my imaginative mind. High lunge feels like an act. Exalted warrior feels true to my balance of pride and humble. Twisted legs and balancing in eagle pose feels like the physical embodiment of trying to stabilize when doing a million things at once. This recent work deals with the energetic field outside the body, based in an energy modality called source point. This first piece is studying reflection, and it's really combining the garment, the space, and the phenomenology within the space that occurs when you move within the garment and interact with the space. And then in moments, the reflection takes on its own materiality and in some ways really divorces itself from the human and the garment altogether. And it really just feels like it's more a part of the space. I often work in dualities. It helps me remember and take into account that every extreme exists within its opposite. So here's the counterpoint to the piece that I just showed that was more about points and reflection or projection and femininity. And here we have a more masculine piece that's a bit more about line and reflection. And so in this picture, the work is really studying reflection in terms of the way it happens in water. And here it's thinking about where is the line between reflection and projection, and also what happens when you abstract the form of the body and the piece really becomes its own thing, kind of like what happened with the shadows in Invisible Place or some of the projection in the earlier work. How the space and the human body and the movement of the human body can reflect or project themselves onto each other. So after I make a piece that has two dualities, I always try to combine them so that I can see how they interact with one another. The act of combining them really brings awareness that the two extremes exist within one another. And just by seeing the forms together, that existence of the opposite can highlight what's happening within the other opposite that is perhaps invisible to us in the eye. So the opposite here could be projection and reflection, or feminine and masculine. And so together, it's a study of the subtle differences between projection and reflection. So as Joe and I begin to work together, I'm really excited that we'll be exploring how our different mediums and the invisible forces we're both studying interact and inform one another.
I'm also really excited to work together with Alex. And I'm just re-showing this wine glass thing because Alex, I'm going to connect you to it somehow. We're going to figure out a way to have the body engage with the muon particles and the sound. Don't know what that is yet, but I think it's an interesting exploration, part of one of our areas that we're going to be working on with this collaboration.
Hello.
So I can touch base a little bit about our collaboration. I think this is kind of unexpected and perfect timing for this to happen. I mean, minus not being able to have our show this summer, and then Carol and Harvestworks reaching out about the residency in space kind of coincided with Alexandra and us having conversation about working together on future projects. So really kind of the timing worked out super well. And we, in addition to like that sound stuff and the performance, there's more work that we're doing, and Alex can talk about this also, where we're going to be looking at sort of ideas of synchronicity and how we can use technology to connect and make some of these inner phenomena more visible and share that with people around us, people in the space, and sort of that kind of stuff. So when I talk about putting the wine glasses, which are connected to particle detectors together, it's also in part figuring out how to connect that with the body and Alex's performance.
Yeah, and what we started doing is playing with heart rate sensors so that we can visually show the heartbeat in the garment, and then see how that rhythm relates to the rhythms that Joe is picking up on. And I think ultimately we want to see how things can influence each other, and the relationship that a feedback loop could be created either between person to person, person to space, and what happens when you make different invisible things visible. How will that affect the feedback loop in a way? And I guess when I say visible, I don't mean just vision, because like when Joe's putting it to sound or movement, any of those things, I guess just make it available to our senses.
So over the next 2 months that we're in residence at the Harvestworks space on Governor's Island, we're going to be doing more of a series of experiments and playing with how we connect with each other. And so rather than having one sort of idea set piece of what the work is that we're making, we're just treating this time as a really experimental moment for both of our practices to come together in a new and unique place. And I'm super excited about it.
Me too. It's been fun.
Are you thinking performance, or are you thinking, or you're still thinking?
I can speak to that. Because I think when the way that I'm thinking about it is performance, but maybe in a broader range of what you think of as performance than maybe what. Because like I see Joe's work as performance as much as the work that I was doing as performance. So I don't know if it's like interactive performance or if it's the performance of something that's not human or human. But in my mind, I see all of it as performance. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why I am excited about the collaborations, because it presents an opportunity to work in a way that I don't usually work. pretty much all of my work is very performative, but it's all sort of choreographed, and it's all everything. You kind of have an idea of what it's going to do, what it's going to look like, and how it's going to feel after you've been there, even though if it changes over time. Like, for instance, the LED piece, the outdoor sculpture, which, by the way, it's actually coming down soon. So if there's anyone here that is looking to install a large indoor, outdoor interactive LED light sculpture, you know where to find me. But that piece, it changes over time, and it's not really going to look the same when you see it one day to the next or 1 minute to the next. But overall, you can get the sort of gestalt of it. You've got like the feeling, the sense of it. And so working in performance is an opportunity to also take that performative aspect and make it more ephemeral and just engage people in a way that oftentimes my work is trying to do, but kind of can never really do, because it's not a human, it's not a body in space.
I guess I'm thinking about the data. You know, the wind chimes uses the data from that website, right? I mean, certainly the body has a lot of data in it also.
Yeah,
However,
yeah, and I think
capture that.
And I think that's an interesting, hard exploration because they are very different and distinct. And that is something that I'm very interested in trying to make a conversation between. How do you take these two disparate data sets? Like, they don't, body data, muon solar particle data don't necessarily compute, but we can create a situation where they are able to communicate and talk to each other. So absolutely, there's some room for exploring that performance and communications of different datas.
And I think something that is really interesting about even the like how Joe is speaking to his process, the process that we're doing, mine is very, it's not like you don't know what's going to happen. And I think even in the process, bringing the processes together, we're discovering things that can be utilized to then create things that influence and have relationships on each other. So that's really intriguing to learn from that. And it's exciting to do it at Governor's Island.
One more quick question. How did your collaboration evolve? I mean, how did you meet, or was it chance, or what was the any deciding factors there?
Do you want to take that one, Alex?
You can take it. Okay. We both teach at Pratt at this, and there's a thing at Pratt called Pratt Integrated Courses. And so Joe and I both teach courses in that, and they're kind of similar in a way, that they're both exploring these ideas that we've mentioned, and that's
cool.
And we both teach very different mediums, but I think when we discovered what we were both teaching and talking about and making, I'm like, Alex, you want to teach my course? Can I teach yours? So it kind of works out really well.
Yeah, and then even in talking about teaching, the things that we're up against with the material is like, we have the opposite strengths and challenges in our material. And so that became a really interesting thing too, of like, how can that filter into the work we make as well? And maybe the teaching too. Like, maybe we're thinking about that, I don't know.
Okay, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Bye. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, UCLA.
6 o'clock is Valerie. So we're happy to work with Valerie Hallier this year, both as a resident at Harvestworks and for the Artist Studio on Governor's Island. And Valerie, I think, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first?
So yeah, I came to America a while back with the Fulbright scholarship and studied at SVA, where I got a master's, and then worked with the internet for a very long time, and kind of got sucked in a commercial world for a little while, and then kind of, you know, I was spitted out and back into the art world, the art world. So here I am, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity to share some of my work and to be with Harvestworks, to have this residency on Governor Island, and to be able to make the project Scream Now possible. It's a very simple idea, but I think it has really tremendous exponential potential to have many iterations. So what you're going to see during this presentation is definitely a work in progress. Visualizing screaming, the process of screaming, allowing ourselves to scream and finding a safe space for that. And the booth, as you'll see, is kind of offering a sanctuary, and it resonates also with our days today, the restriction, the confinement, the isolation, etc. So when you're ready with the presentation, you can go ahead, and thanks again for this opportunity. Where I found other app that dealt with anger management, nothing really like screaming, but for screaming there's a couple of devices that were kind of interesting, like a scream box, just basically like it's kind of presentation. Yeah, you can just rewind.
Okay, we've got some pretty strange.
Sucking up the sound and the shouting bass also.
Okay, hang on. We got it.
Hello, welcome. This is Scream Now Inside Out, a project by Valerie Hallier. This is the proposal for the project. The opportunity to be on Governor Island has transformed the project. I included the studio space which we were offered for a few months. So the original idea, the screaming booth, where someone comes in, scream and visualizes their scream, has a added component where the scream basically are processed and transformed into visuals, and then back on the booth through a projection and through a small monitor inside of the booth. So this idea of inside out, inside of the studio, I used flower petal roses, red roses and white roses, to kind of cover all the walls of the booth as an element from the outside coming in, just like the element from the inside, from the person, the scream, going inside of the studio, liberated outside. So this whole kind of back and forth is going on. And next, I would like to go through my process from inspiration to kind of like the step-by-step that brought me to an almost complete project. It's still in progress, but very close. The first element is actually, in medieval time, the French crieur public, who was like an interface between the king's decree and the people. And that person usually was accompanied by with a loud voice and accompanied by some kind of element to create attention. This existed also in the US eventually. The other source for inspiration was a radio show back in the 90s that I heard. I think it was This American Life or Radio Lab. and people were phoning in and they were screaming. They were allowed to kind of just go for it, and I just was fascinated by that, and it kind of stayed in my mind until I could give shape to this project. Next, I'd like to go briefly through a research project that I did, thinking first that I could do an app which would then not be dependent on like a physical booth, but using an app to kind of crowdsource places where you can go and scream. So I did a UX study, a user experience study, to try to figure out like why and how people could be helped and whether it was a good idea, basically. So when was the last time you screamed? Getting to the notion of like the positive and the negative aspect, like it's definitely socially unacceptable, but it's also a very powerful survival mechanism. It can be embarrassing for some people, it can be liberating, so different people have different experience. So I'm not going to go through every aspect, but basically trying to define what the problem is through research, especially through interviews, and try to figure out like, is it easy for people to scream? Like, what would they need? What would help? And it was pretty evident that people, it's not such a simple process because we have public lives and people need privacy more than anything to be able to release something so powerful. So next I did like a comparative analysis where I found other apps that dealt with anger management, nothing really like screaming, but for screaming there's a couple of devices that were kind of interesting, like a scream box, just basically like sucking up the sound, and the shouting vase, also something that was developed in Japan. And some art project, like an art installation, some more kind of like almost sport related things, and then one funny Stephen Colbert for the 2016 election result had one screaming booth, literally a phone booth transformed into a screaming booth where people, you would basically monitor their reaction after the elections. Then feature comparison for product, defining like a persona, a person that kind of fits exactly the user. And then defining the user flow, like how to basically get to the screen and visualize it and save it. And then the feature presentation, the most important to low importance, expected to unexpected, that start to define all the features that are like part of the MVP, which is the minimal viable product, which is indispensable for the product to, at least to test first. And then next level add-on that can be added later. And so first sitemap, and then some more testing with wireframe and paper testing, like basically just going through the process of the actions that people will go through to scream, visualize the scream, sort them out, like how would that happen? So that brings to another sitemap, and then finally to like a prototype, an interactive prototype where you can really test a little bit the functionality of the app, which is where I ended with this. So next off, I'd like to speak a little bit about the visualization. And the very first test I did was actually at Harvestworks with Tommy Martinez, who was using Max also at the time, and we were trying to find visuals that could be individualized for each type of scream, each screamer, so taking different parameters within the sound, like the pitch and the things. And next I'm going to show you like a little video test. So this was the first test. Then came a second round. So the second wave of visualization happened during a residency. Actually, I was invited by the New York Theremin Society by musician Doric Chrysler, that you can see here, playing the theremin. She invited me during our residency at Pioneer Works to work on visualization of the sound. And at the time we were working with, we worked with lip motion to kind of little device that allows you to interact with program software on the computer through basically tactile point in the air, very similar to like the way the theremin works. So based on that, we worked together with Dorit. Yeah. And during like a live event for a benefit for Pioneer Works, we kind of had live, I was triggering live this app called Beautiful Chaos that can really create like an explosion of pixels, along with her playing the theremin, and then we invited people to work along. So the interface was pretty simple, but you know, based on her motion, basically I work with the program, and it was kind of like an inspiration for what I wanted to do for the screen visualization. So that brings us to the work that I am currently doing with Matthew Ostrovsky at Harvestworks. So using Max 8 this time with Matthew, we started trying to define different parameters with the pitch, the volume, the brightness and the noise, and the pitch especially here triggers the coloring, and the shape also slightly 3D-ish. So this is a first attempt, and then we have another one here. Similarly, I will put the sound down so that it's not too loud. So here more three-dimensionality. The line takes over on the so I was looking for something a little more subtle as far as translation. So we have now this guy, which so it's more muted, and finally I have what we are working from right now, which is the closest to what will be used for the public, the first public use of the booth. And sorry, I didn't mute that one, I didn't put the sound down, but yeah, basically the points, the color, all those elements hopefully are able to differentiate in between the screen. They still work on that right now. And next, the booth. This is the original drawing to construct the booth, inspired by phone booth, the circular aspect, the cylindric aspect, and so using mostly originally LED screen was what would be enabling the visualization of the screen. With COVID, unfortunately they are produced only in China, so that got a little complicated. But I then was lucky to be helped by Tom Froon and his studio manager, Matt Canada, to help me work and basically create the booth. Matt was amazing at putting together and teaching me basically step by step working with steel, which I had not done. So created those rings, the 3 rings for the booth, soldering, putting it together. And very simple, but I think a beautiful structure that came out. And that then traveled to the island, which is the next step. So yeah, we see here the booth on the island near building 10A in Nolan Park, where I have my studio. This is the studio over here, it's the sunroom. And this is a temporary positioning of the booth, just to see how close and how convenient it could be. You can see here I use bricks from the island just to keep it in place, and you can see here the view from the studio. And then I added a bottom here just so that there's restriction on the island. You cannot dig more than 6 inches, so we need to secure the base, since there are crazy weather going on. So next I will show you just a few video bits of the steps taken, one being, you know, stuff that we're not always that. So yeah, just stuff that you don't really think about, but leveling the ground was kind of a big deal, so the booth could be stable and flat. And so we got to that. Then I started testing the sound, the connection to the small monitor that's inside of the studio. Then I was testing the wireless microphone.
Good, but not as the usual experience up here.
With my 8-year-old assistant, my daughter, making progress.
Good.
Okay. And then the anchorage of the booth positioned. Final position, and then using bricks again, this time on top of the structure to kind of stabilize it. And then I added the plexiglass, which will receive eventually the projection. Right now we only have the monitor here. Oops, I don't know what happened there. But yeah, the monitor over there, and the connection to the studio to power and connect the VGA cable. First test with the setup that we kind of have right now. The microphone and the small monitor inside. And inside of the studio, basically the walls little by little got covered by the rose petals from red to white, which turns a little yellow. Almost finished with that part as well. So you see a little bit like what the setup here is. So this is basically where the project is at. Next step will be to work on the projection, and to give a little context to my work, the mix of different medium. I'll read a brief statement. my work explores how control and its release. So control, like on the release of control, I see that like with the screaming in another piece that I'm about to show you, which is about deflowering, losing one's virginity, this idea of control and loss of control. I think colors the dynamics between the natural, the human, and the technological realms as we tend to separate them. My multimedia work in general aims to break away from the patriarchal hegemony of vision as our primary sense since the Renaissance and the invention of perspective kind of really put man at the center. Anyway, so by stimulating all senses, my goal is to offer spaces where meaningful experience can be created and new scenario can be imagined. And there is a quote from Judith Escolana from mediaThe Gallery, where I had a solo show a while back, where she talks about my work follows an interactive continuum that utilizes technology as tool and object, generating an exquisite tension between the humanistic and the mechanistic sense of being. So this tension between the different realms, as I was saying. So this next piece, this was a solo show that happened at NARS in February 2020, before. And the show is called Defloré. The video is not of great quality, but hopefully it runs smoothly. And it'll show you like the different pieces of the show. Each of those pieces is inspired by a story recounted by a visitor to a previous exhibition, where people were invited to write down the story of their first time losing their virginity. And in that show, in the solo show that you're looking at right now, the same setup was replicated, where people could listen to a previous story, but they could also, like you see over there on the right, they could also share their own story, listen to other story, and share their own story. And the next work I'm going to show you relates directly to this idea of ocular centrism that this Finnish architect, Mr. Palasma, talks about in his book, The Eyes of the Skin, which directly inspired the next piece that I'm about to show you. So the piece was called Eyes of My Skin, and it stages like a bust of my daughter, looking at this visually stimulating Barocco type frame, and inside of the frame is every single picture that I've taken since she was born, so 8 years worth of pictures, and commenting on the visual stimulation that is kind of what we are dealing with right now. And finally, a last piece that reconnects directly with the inside of the studio on Governor Island, which is the first time I have kind of used flower petal on a larger scale. And this is on a wall at Trestle Art Space. And you see like giving some dimensionality through this wall and the light on the petals. And petals are really a way for me to touch upon the fragility and yet resilience that I see they represent in nature, but also like this feminine part that combine both qualities. Here you see a better resolution rendering of the wall. And then finally, Committee, thank you for having me presenting my project, and thank you to Carol to make this residency happen. Thank you for Matthew Ostrowski, software development on Max 8. Thank you Matthew Canada, studio manager, and Tom Fern, advisor, artist, and Elle Allier, my assistant, documentalist. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valerie. It's really great to see all of the work together. It's nice.
Thank you. The sound wasn't great. I hope it was intelligible, but.
Yes, it was really a wonderful overview of your research and the research behind the piece, that people can actually make an appointment with you and experience Scream Now on Governor's Island. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's starting September 15th. Because of the restrictions with COVID, we are going to take appointment. So there's an email address that's on site, and that's also on the Harvestworks website, screamnow44@gmail.com. And basically we can schedule a session where people can come scream. We need to be cautious with cleaning the booth after each usage, etc. But that's the opportunity for people to really get to experience the booth. I also already today made progress on the visuals, so to really almost people could get a little portrait, of their screens that they could take away. So I could email them the little QuickTime that just is a little snapshot, and that's kind of a fun, a photo booth type, take away from the experience, and just be able to scream on the island is pretty awesome.
That's what I was going to thank, actually, the Trust for Governor's Island, because actually when you think about it, a person screaming outside, is pretty disruptive in terms of some public presence. So I just want to mention that we did clear the activity with security, and we did clear it with the trust, and they were amazing just to work with this piece and understand it in this political environment. I thought it was pretty awesome of them.
No, it's great. I mean, it reflects their real support for, artistic endeavor, and they're not afraid, and they take the measures that are necessary. And so it's just really a great experience altogether. And I can't wait to get even further in the project.
And what are the dates that are available?
So it's basically every Tuesdays and every every Tuesdays and every Wednesday, between 2 and 5. That's when it's the best time also, because the next step on the booth is also to project the visual onto the booth, which we are going to do together, I think, this week, just testing. So that'll be an addition to the overall experience. So it's really good, and thank you so much.
Well, it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be amazing.
Thank you, Carol. And thank you, this cool festival. It's really great to be part of.
Well, thank you so much. All the artists I want to thank for participating, in our experiments in live broadcasts here from Harvestworks, and also really to thank Victoria and her ArtSci team, which are so awesome in this this New York, LA kind of collaboration that we've been doing that involves broadcasts with New York artists and LA artists. So I don't know whether Victoria is around or not, but I'd like to thank the whole crew over there at Telluric Vibrations. And I think we can sign off now. So you want to say goodbye? Okay. Thank you.
Au revoir. Bye-bye.